Welcome to the Act Out Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Tomlin. Today's guest is coach and founder of Dad Mode Activated, Aaron Gambel. Roll the tape. Aaron, how are you, man?
Very well. Thanks for having me.
Man, it is an absolute pleasure. Whenever I was kind of reading a little bit of your background, I was very excited to have you on. So can you please tell the listeners what you do now?
What I do now?
Yes, currently.
Yeah, well, I'm actually building a business right now in the sort of men's space, men's work, coaching, and leadership and mentorship.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mentioned this a little bit off camera before we started, is that I used to work in the film industry, and I worked as basically a blue collar worker in a crew member in the film industry for 15 years. And I just kind of realized that it wasn't serving me in the most positive way. It wasn't following my purpose. You know, I went to film school and I wanted to get into the creative field. And once I really got into Hollywood, so to speak, I just kind of realized that the business of it and the hustle and sort of the toxicity just didn't align with where I want to live my life now.
Yeah. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. So the coaching and the leadership, is that something that you've always kind of had a fascination with, or did it kind of develop over time?
That's a really interesting question. I would say unconsciously, I have always been sort of a teacher, a leader, a guide for people. But it wasn't until recently that I realized that was something that I could actually, do for my life and for a living. I had a friend, I had a girl that I dated, and she, was very spiritual, very sort of woo-woo, if you will. And she was looking into some of my like a chart in some of the things. I think it was like human design. I don't know if you're familiar with human design.
No, I'm not actually.
It's kind of like astrology, but on steroids. That's how I kind of describe it. But she was looking into this stuff, and she goes, you should be a coach. And I was like, what do you mean? Like a basketball coach? And she was like, no, she's like, like a career coach, like a life coach. And I looked at her and was like, I don't even know what that is. But then as I started looking into it and I started actually like understanding what that is, I started making all of these associations to what I was actually doing in my life already and how they kind of intersect. I'm like, well, I've actually been doing this for most of my life. I just didn't realize what that was. And that was just me being me.
Right. Yeah. Well, the best coaches kind of, they get that way by experience. And sometimes experience is while being a great teacher, not the most fun to deal with. So I'm assuming that the backstory, there's a little bit more there, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, we can definitely get into that story.
Yeah.
I like to look at it as like, are you familiar with the term the dark night of the soul?
Yeah, yes.
This experience that I had was very much my dark night of the soul.
Can you explain that a little bit further to the viewer in case they don't know?
Yeah. Well, the dark night of the soul is kind of like in the sort of metaphoric terms is when somebody has to go through a very like dark moment of like nearly hitting rock bottom in order to then learn whatever it is that they needed to learn, whether that's understanding that they had lost themselves or, repeating patterns that may have been coming up. To go into that dark night of a soul, to have that rock bottom experience, and then come out of that and be a new version of yourself. It's very similar to like, the phoenix rising. Like the phoenix has to burn in order to then rise out of the ashes a new version.
That absolutely resonates with me very much so. Had my had my own dark night of the soul, and to the point where I felt like I was worthless and that I was fundamentally flawed as a human. So even at my lowest point, whenever I was asking for help, it wasn't even for me. Like I wasn't asking for help for myself. I just had my son, and I knew that I was helpless to repeat patterns that, like, I could see them plain as day, but at the same time, I was absolutely powerless to stop them, and that terrified me. And I was like, if there's any way that I can have Camden not have to deal with this, then I think maybe it'll be worth it. So yeah, I absolutely do know what you mean there, man. And it's such a difficult time to try to explain to someone who hasn't been there, you know?
Yeah, it really is. It's a difficult time. I mean, it sounds like that our stories are very similar.
Mhm.
I had this realization that I wasn't living my own life.
Mhm.
And that's where it really comes from.
Yeah.
It kind of starts with, you know, a normal fight that I had with my wife. At this time I was
Mhm.
married for 8 years. I had 2 beautiful children, and on paper, if you were to look at my life on paper, it was like, I had a career in the film industry, I
Mhm.
had 2 kids, I had bought a house, I had we didn't have a picket fence, but you get the
Right.
point. And
The
on the
supposed
outside,
American dream.
the American dream, yes. And on the outside, everything looked great, but on the inside, I was just unconsciously drowning.
Mhm.
So I take my kids on a camping trip, the first camping trip that I ever do. I'm a big outdoors person, so this was a big deal. My kids are 5 and 7, and it was a solo trip, so it's just me and my kids. And during that time, something inside of me clicked. And when I got back, I got into a big fight with my wife at the time.
Mhm.
And that was something that was relatively normal in our house. And at the end of that fight, I walked up into my bedroom and I completely, like, something broke inside me.
Mhm.
I walked into our bedroom and I grabbed a bottle of Xanax and I shook that bottle and I looked down at all of those pills and counted about 25 or so and thought to myself, I could just down all of these and never
Mhm.
wake up. And as I was lifting that bottle to my mouth, an image popped into my mind.
Mhm.
And that image was of my 2 kids down in the living room, running around the coffee table, laughing and playing the game Uno. That image stopped my arm from
Mhm.
lifting that bottle to my mouth. Because I had the realization in that moment that I cannot leave them. That whatever was going on,
Mhm.
whatever I was dealing with, this fear of, generational trauma that I was going to pass down to my kids, it would have been far worse if I actually ended my life
Mhm.
and wasn't there for them.
Yep.
So the next thing that I had to do was, one of the toughest decisions I've ever had to make as a man.
Mhm.
And that was to put myself in the hospital.
Yeah.
So I called a friend and
Why do
I
you
had
think it was
him.
such a tough decision? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to stop you there, but why can you get into a little bit of why it was so difficult for you to make that decision?
Well, I mean, it's I like to reframe it and to call it a tough
Mhm.
decision because most men, I'm speaking in generalizations here. A
Yeah,
lot of
yeah.
men have a hard time being able to make decisions that have to do with mental health
Yes.
and have a hard time understanding that, something's wrong and that it needs to change. So I see it as like, it took a lot of freaking courage for me to admit, I don't feel right. There's something else going on here and I need to go check that out.
The
I,
most courageous, the strongest thing you can ever do is to be vulnerable enough to ask for help. Absolutely. So I 100% agree with you. Sorry, I wanted to validate that for you.
Yeah, thank you. I
That's
appreciate
absolutely
that.
true.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I agree with you. And I think, vulnerability is one of the biggest things that I try to teach with other men.
Mhm.
And even in just understanding the kind of emotions that we carry. And we've just been
Oh, yeah.
taught how to not like look at them or recognize them and bury them down. And,
Aaron,
so
I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
It's so funny that you say that because, so I've been in therapy for the last 3 years, internal family systems, therapy, specifically. But I would say the first 6 months of therapy, I called it the see and say therapy where, it's like the horse says nay. And it was literally just trying to figure out where like feelings were coming up like in my body and what that was trying to tell me. And that was literally 6 months. It's unreal, like, but I was never taught that as a kid, you know?
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting how that works, right? We're this
Mm,
generation of men who were raised by war veterans, who were raised by war veterans, who were raised by
mhm,
war veterans, who were all taught not to talk about the things that they experience, not to express their emotions. Like they literally trained to not do that. So you have these generations that come after them, like us, and
mhm.
and other generations who grow up just completely detached from their emotions. And then you have in society now, it's like, and this is changing as we get into, 2025 and 2026. And, is that men aren't like, it's not acceptable for a man to express emotion.
Oh,
The,
yeah, yeah,
the only
absolutely.
acceptable emotion for a man to express is anger. And that's not even necessarily acceptable. It's just
Mhm,
tolerated. Like a
yep,
man can blow off, and get really upset and have a meltdown, but they're not. It's not acceptable to experience sadness,
mhm.
shame, like disgust. And so you have these generations of men who just don't know what to do with that, and they don't know how to explain what it is. Like, what is that
Right.
feeling?
So, I guess whenever you're sitting with a client for the first time, is it I'm basically just trying to validate myself, make sure that, I'm not too far back. Are you kind of having to do the see and say with them, like, this is where, like, emotions are, or, like, are you having to get that granular with clients typically? Or your male clients?
I mean, yeah, yes and no. I'm a very intuitive person, so I
Mhm,
can, and I think that that's kind of like by the way that I was raised, I have, a very innate sense for being able to read people
mhm.
and understand. So I use a lot of that to my advantage. I almost call that a superpower. And I
Yeah.
know that comes from the way that I grew up, like walking around on
Mhm.
eggshells constantly,
Yeah.
constantly scanning for my parents'
Mhm.
reaction to whatever it is that I was doing in that moment, and trying to walk, walking on eggshells and just being hyper aware of the environment around me.
Just today, I was in the shower, and I guess I live in, like, an urban area, so, like, all of our, like, our houses are very close to each other. My neighbor was playing some loud music with the beat, with the bass. The bass sounded like footsteps, and getting in the shower, and I got in, like, fight or flight, like, for a split second, like, it was as if I was, like, 9 years old, about to get in trouble all over again. It's crazy how something like that can trigger you.
Oh, totally. You know what I'll say in that is like the great thing is that you notice that. I mean,
Mhm.
that's a huge, huge accomplishment, right? To understand
It
and
took
notice
40.
and yeah, but I mean, you know what I mean? Like that's that's a lot more than most people. And to have that awareness, like that is, that's powerful. And,
Mm,
because the next step after that is once you get that awareness, you're like, okay, now what's the tool that I can use to actually calm my nervous system down? Like, is that breathing? Is that,
mhm.
some sort of tapping? Is it taking myself out of the environment? Like there's a million different tools to use. But if we can't notice when that's happening,
Mhm.
then none of the tools are going to work.
Yeah. So, it seems like with men, there's so many different hurdles to get to, like, a level where we can just talk like you and I are now. I mean, for me, it took 3 years to be able to do this. And how long was your training? I think you said you got a college degree in mental health, essentially, with the experience, right?
Yes. Well, yeah, that's a part of the story. I didn't actually get a college degree.
Well,
I just
yeah, I'm sorry.
I make a joke out of it is that, so one of the things that I did going back to that story is I had a friend pick me up in that moment where I, nearly ended my life and had the realization that something's not right. I don't feel myself and I need to go figure this out. So I have my friend take me to UCLA Medical Center and I spend 5 days in the Resnick Center, which is their behavioral health unit. And during that process, 2 days in, my wife comes to visit me and she doesn't visit me to offer support. She visits me to let me know that she's filing for divorce. So, going to the sort of dark night of the soul is like, I was in a moment where I was basically at my rock bottom. And then this person who I had built this life with, who I absolutely, wasn't getting along with at the time, but, thought that I was going to spend, the rest of my life with, like, came and told me that. And it was like a trap door opened up underneath me and I fell even darker, deeper down into this, I went below rock bottom is what I like to say.
I mean, I cringe whenever you said that because, like, whenever you like express that vulnerability, you got to have a safe place to land, and like for you to, kind of be vulnerable for one of the first times in your life, and the lesson you learn is like that happens. It's certainly not good. So sorry.
No, that's okay. You know what? The really interesting thing is like, I could sit here and I could, say all of these negative things, but honestly, it was the best thing to ever happen to me. This experience that I had. And the reason why I'm on podcasts and I'm talking about this experience is because I had to go through that in order to realize who I really can be. And I had to have this experience and I had to go to the hospital and I had to experience all of that to then be able to tell this story and to talk to other men who may be feeling that way, who haven't nearly ended their life or who's considering these like big life choices, to understand that like, if I can come out of this and be the happiest I've ever been in my life, so can you. Because I'm nobody special. Like I'm just a, blue collar dude who worked in the film industry and, and I had this experience that nearly ended my life. And I came out of that, the best I've ever been.
You said that before, whenever you had the with the Xanax pills, the image of your sons playing helped you out. In this second moment, whenever you fell even even deeper, what was the turnaround? What was it that got you to go from rock bottom to maybe I can go up?
Well, it didn't just happen, right off the bat. But essentially, what had happened, and I can also speak on the mental health college thing because that's really where the change happened. So I spent 5 days in UCLA. My then wife came and told me that she's filing for divorce. And after that, the doctors had recommended that I go to a residential treatment center, which is basically kind of like rehab. But for me, I like to call it my mental health college experience. Because what we did there is I was there for 25 days and every hour on the hour, 6 days a week from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., we had a new facilitator come and teach us another modality of psychology. And I saved every single paper. I took copious amounts of notes. I was never great in school. Like I got a college degree, but I wasn't, I wasn't a school guy. Like I'm a very hands-on person.
Yeah.
But I leaned in and I took notes upon notes and I remembered all of this information. I saved every document that they ever gave us, every handout. And I still have it today. And I reference that stuff all the time. And what I started to realize is how fascinating our brains are. And I really started to understand things like our nervous system, or the subconscious programming that we have, or parental modeling, and how we, our lives are shaped in these early years of childhood, and it teaches you how you show up in your life later on, say in a relationship or at a job or, particular situations.
Can you explain that, why an event can happen so early in your life and it still have an impact so much later on, as if you're back in time?
Well, the science behind that says that we as people, make sure I get this right. We get the most information of how we approach life from 2 to like 8 years old. So, and that generally comes from the interactions we have and our parents, because that's who we see all the time. I'm also a big proponent of this, is like modeling. And that's what I kind of talked about before, is like parental modeling, is that you learn more by seeing what other people do and say and how they interact than being told this is how you're supposed to do this, right? And I think about this all the time as a parent now of 2 kids, like how am I modeling like great behavior? How am I showing up? So
it's that's so tough.
It really is. It's so tough.
I've realized now, and I think that's kind of like one of the biggest challenges for me, is because I know that the external voice that I use for myself now is going to be Camden's internal voice whenever he is my age. And so, yeah, that is probably one of the biggest responsibilities I have as a dad, is to make sure his inner voice is a lot kinder to him than my inner voice is to me sometimes.
Right. And where's that come from, right? That comes from your parents on how they spoke to you, right? And I was the same way, man. I grew up in a really rough household. I spoke a little bit on the walking on eggshells, but like my parents are incredibly emotionally immature. I'm looking back on it now, like they had no business being parents. They just didn't, and they were trying their best, but they just didn't have the skills to actually be good present parents. And that's, that's just what happened, right? Like that's how I grew up. And I try not to like really, like, I don't like to place blame because I don't think that actually really helps anything. And
right.
And I can sit here and I can be a victim, but like that's also not going to help at all. Like, but what I can do is I can understand how I grew up and use that to inform me how I'm raising my kids now and how I show up in the world now with other people, right?
Yeah.
And that is, that's, when you put it in that perspective, like that's magic. Like that's, that's a superpower.
Yeah, absolutely. I've wrestled back and forth with this, and at the end of the day, you cannot teach something that you were never taught in the first place. And so, for me, it wasn't about finding blame or like, this is your fault or whatever. It was helpful though in contextualizing and making me kind of feel like maybe I'm not fundamentally flawed. Maybe I'm not like a bad person in and of itself. Maybe like just some things happen. And that was kind of that was the helpful part of it, not the I get to blame somebody for me not, doing well.
Right. Yeah. So one of the biggest things that I struggled with, and it really was a big driver of getting me to that place of going to the hospital, was this idea that if I got a divorce, that I was a failure. That I was failing myself, that I was failing my kids, and that somehow, some way, my kids would end up with a stepdad or a stepmom that is going to treat them horribly, like I grew up. I grew up with a stepmom, and she was not the nicest person to me at all. So I had to really work on reframing that idea that, like, 2 happy homes are far better than 1 toxic home.
Yes. That reframing is such a powerful tool. Can you kind of speak a little bit on like what reframing means, and like how could someone put that into their life, or how could someone put that into practice in their life?
Yeah, I mean, that goes into the neuro-linguistic programming type stuff, right? NLP, which is really, really powerful work. And I truly believe at a core, we are the products of our own reality. And that
Yes.
we're able to create the reality that we want, right? And we do, it happens all the time in the language that you use. And, choosing to speak to yourself in a certain way, or choosing to speak to other people in a certain way, can shift how you show up for in that reality, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a woman, her name is Marissa Peer, and she's a hypnosis specialist, and really, really, I think she's also very big in NLP. And she said this really amazing thing that really stuck with me, is like our brains are very literal things.
Mm-hmm.
You tell it, I can't do this, and it will make you so you can't do it, right? So if you have this internal thought process that you're not lovable or that you're not enough, it literally tells your brain, okay, make him not enough. Turn off these things and turn on these things. And, so I thought that, once I learned about that kind of stuff, I just got really fascinated with how our brains work.
Yeah. It is fascinating.
There's an amazing quote that I don't know where it came from, but it's something that I say all the time. And it really, I'd live by this quote. And it really sums up kind of what we're talking about. And it goes like this. It's, our brains will choose a familiar hell over an unfamiliar heaven every single time.
That is so fascinating to me. I guess it goes back to the uncertainty, right? Humans kind of we hate having any uncertain thing. And but still though, you would think you're no, I'm in hell right now. And maybe I can get to heaven. You'd think it would be so much easier.
Right. Well, it's all about safety, right? You learn early on that this thing is what keeps you safe.
Mm-hmm.
And that may not be healthy.
Yep. Your brain's not trying to be happy. It's trying to stay alive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes back to evolutionary times, right? When we were cavemen, somebody goes into a cave and gets eaten by a bear, and your brain goes, okay, don't ever go in a cave.
Right.
Right. That's what's going to keep you alive. It's the same kind of thing. But now we're apex predators. We don't have any worries of survival anymore, but our brain still wants to operate in that way. So it applies to emotions. Mm-hmm. And it does the same kind of survival instincts, but just dealing with our emotions. So, growing up in an environment where you're walking on eggshells all the time, inherently, you're going to kind of seek out that same kind of environment. And if we're not aware of that, you could find yourself in an environment where you're well, why am I repeating these same things? Why did I marry this person that was just like my stepmom?
Yeah.
It's kind of wild how that happens.
So why do you think some people are able to see it, spot it, and literally rewire their brains, and other people aren't? What do you think the difference is? Giving you the really easy questions.
That's a big one, man. That's a really big question. I think what we're talking about is awareness, right?
Yeah.
And having that awareness. I think that, and I can only use my own personal experience. I'm 47. I'm about to be 47 years old, right? So I'm 46 years old. This stuff happened to me at 43. So I spent 40, or 30 something years completely unconscious and not understanding that I was living my life based around emotions, and making decisions based on emotions. And there was some rational logic in there that, deciding to go to college or whatever it may be, but being incredibly unconscious and not understanding, why do I feel this way?
And assuming that you were making the most logical, free from emotion decisions around it. But at the same time, every single one of them is by a subconscious emotion that you don't even realize you're feeling.
Right.
It's so crazy how similar our stories are. tell people that it took me 36 years to get my brain and my body to feel like they connected for the first time. I'm sorry, it's just,
Dude,
it's
I'm the exact same way, man. Like, I'm really fascinated with, and it's something that I practice in my own practice is that mind body connection, right? I'm so used to just detaching from my feelings, detaching from what's going on in my body, and it took years to realize that that's where you really understand. That's where the real awareness comes.
Yeah.
You know, and the nervous system is a large part of that, you know. I grew up and lived majority of my life just operating in fight or flight.
Yeah.
I go right to in most situations, I go right to fight. Ultra focused action. Like
I'm more of a freeze kind of guy.
I've gravitated toward careers even that have fueled that.
I was going to ask you why you thought that you went into the film industry. You know, you said that you'd like majored in it and stuff. So I thought maybe that was kind of like went back to like, you know, some of the like earlier things.
Completely unconscious, but the job that I found, it's really interesting, Adam. Like, you know, when you go to film school and you study, like, I want to be a cinematographer or a director or whatever. When you get into the film industry, you start at the bottom. Like, it doesn't matter how much school you went to. Like, you are the guy, the production assistant getting coffee for the big wigs, and you have to work your way up. So in that kind of model, I had a direction that I wanted to go in. I knew that like cinematography was something that I found fascinating. I loved taking photos and like creating beautiful images. But in the process of working my way up in you know, climbing the ladder, so to speak, I kept gravitating toward these jobs that were high stress, that were, you know, really tons of pressure. So my main job that I ended up doing for quite some time as I was working my way up was called a focus puller. It was a first AC. And it's one of the few people on a film set that does their job live. So there's 4 people on a film set that do their job live, right? There's the actor. He's acting while the camera's recording. There's the camera operator who's moving the camera around while it's recording. There's the boom operator who's like recording the sound and having to move the microphone everywhere. And then there's me, the focus puller, making sure that everything is in focus while everything is moving around on the set. And, you know, what I usually like to tell people when they don't understand is if you've ever watched a show and all of a sudden it goes out of focus and it's not like a creative thing, it just like is kind of distracting to whatever you're watching, and then all of a sudden it's like back in focus, that's somebody at my job messing up.
So we're only aware of your job whenever there's a screw up. That's the best job ever, right?
And so if I mess up, like say for example, I'm working on a movie. This didn't actually happen, but I'm gonna use this as an example. If I'm working on a movie and we are shooting Leonardo DiCaprio and he has to cry and have this massive emotional experience. It's not easy to just cry, right? Especially when you have 150 people behind the camera looking at you while you're trying to do this, right? Acting's freaking hard. But if we have this emotional moment and he's crying on set, and then all of a sudden the director says, okay, cut, we have to do that again because this guy over here messed up the focus. Like, you know, like the amount of pressure that comes, and now it's my fault that Leonardo DiCaprio has to figure out how to cry again so we could do it again and it be in focus this time, you know? And for whatever reason, my body, my mind, my, you know, that familiar hell was being in that nervous system blasting fight or flight, like ultra focused action. Like, and I know it so well that I gravitated toward jobs that fueled that.
Whenever there's chaos, I feel the most, like I would feel the most at peace. I'm like, oh, okay, like this is, we can get this done. When everything is completely fine, like, you know, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. or whatever, like, no, you're not going to be able to see me. But man, if it's like crunch, I'm right there.
Oh yeah, same. You know, and it got to the point to where like, you know, I need to take some ownership for how I was during that time. Is like when, you know, in my relationship, when things are too calm and too normal, like I would do stuff to almost create chaos, you know, and like understanding that like I'm doing that and why I was doing that and where that was coming from is because that was the unfamiliar heaven that I just wasn't comfortable being in. You know, I wanted that familiar hell. Like I wanted things to be chaos because that's how I grew up. I grew up in chaos.
Taylor Swift was right. I was the problem.
Yeah, you know, at certain points, like we take ownership, right? I think the best thing you can do as a man is take ownership for your choices, and take, you know, you say something and like to come up with excuses or something like that. Like, no, dude, we have to own it. Like you own the choices that you made. You own the actions that you did, and as soon as you own that, you can move on from it. You know, it's like, yeah, see, dude, I messed up. I'm sorry. Like, I won't do that again.
So I think that kind of goes back to what you were talking back about a little bit before, where it was kind of about the external validation. So guys are kind of, you know, used to getting that from the outside, and there isn't anything on the inside to be able to like root them into like who they are. And so it's very easy to kind of be led astray whenever you have no sense of self whatsoever.
Oh yeah, definitely. And that's where I lived. That was me, you know, for a long time. And it wasn't until, you know, again, I had to put myself through this really dark experience and essentially turn my life upside down to understand that I wasn't happy and that I had lost my true self. I wasn't being, you know, I wasn't living the life that was meant for me.
Did you lose? I'm sorry. Did you lose your true self, or did you ever have it before? Do you think?
Well, that's a great question. I think that he was in there. I just didn't know how to find that version of me, right? Like I didn't know how to find that, like what truly made me happy. Because I was just operating in survival mode all the time. I was surviving, not thriving. You know,
people ask me, you know, if you could go back and give like one piece of advice to yourself, what would it be? And I struggle with that question so much because I think back to how I felt and like literally how you were describing, where I'm so disconnected from my body, and it feels like that you're in such a like deep, deep just hole that like I don't know what one piece of advice would be. So I'm going to pose the question to you. Like if you could go back to yourself in those moments, what would you tell yourself?
That is a great question. I think the first thing that comes to mind is that I am loved. But I wrestle with that question because, you know, there's two sides to this. I wrestle with that question because I don't know what I would say to my, and if I did say that, would that change the outcome of how I am now, right? Like I truly believe that everything that I experienced, the childhood, you know, the way that I grew up has informed me for what I'm now doing. The hospital experience, you know, my divorce, like all of these things, like becoming a father, like all of these things have now informed me for the man that I am today and what I'm doing to help others. So if I go back and say, hey, you know, and give some advice to my younger self, like, is that going to put me on a different pathway to where I'm not going to actually be in the position to help others?
Yeah, that's a good point. You're right. Like everything had to happen just exactly as it did in order for you to be in where you are. I definitely I get that. And I think, and as you were answering the question that like came to me, I don't even think I would say anything to myself. I think I would just literally sit down and just be a presence for myself, and just to try to show myself that I was worthy of like having someone around me to care about me in the first place. I think that would have done more than any words could have, you know, that could have been said.
Yeah, I agree, dude. I agree. Yeah, just having a person there that like truly was like, dude, I got you.
Hmm. If
like
you'll give me like 5 minutes, I'm going to go to the fetal position and cry for a little bit. But but no, I mean it's sad to think that, but like literally, wouldn't even need to be words. Just someone sitting beside you would make you feel something.
Yeah.
I think our stories are so similar where like every time you say something, you're reminding me of something, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to say this. So I apologize if I've cut you off a couple of times.
Oh, no, it's all good. This is part of the conversation. Like we definitely are very similar, like very, very similar stories. And I think that that's actually, it's kind of amazing to have that conversation because, as men, I believe we're just so taught to do everything alone and to ask for help is considered weakness. Like I'm going to be a little crass here, but it's like, like asking for help, quit being a pussy. Like,
Yep.
you know what I mean? Like, and that's so wrong. So asking for support and like having, the courage to be like, man, I need to get help. Like that's, that to me is true strength.
Yeah.
That is true strength.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if enough men in this world today understand that. And that's one of the reasons why I'm doing what I'm doing. It's why I'm doing podcasts, why I'm building this coaching business. It's why I'm, trying to just help men understand that like, dude, we like asking for help is not weakness.
Yeah.
We can't live in this world alone.
Mm. I don't know, or I guess, I mean, it's just for millennia where strength for men has only been exterior. Like, how much are you going to be able to like bench press? How big are your muscles? But I think that now, like, as we develop more and more as a society, we are much more egalitarian. We don't need the caveman anymore. We we need a lot more of the emotional maturity, standing up for yourself and your family kind of thing.
Yeah. And connection to your body, connection to your emotions. We as men, we have a tendency to want to fix things. Like we're fixers. You give us a problem. Okay, great. I'm excited right now. I've got a problem that I can fix. Right. So what I do is,
said it best, if there's a problem, I'll solve it.
Right. Exactly. Well, and I run a men's group and we meet twice a month. And what I try to talk about with men in the men's group is it's very simple. It's like, this is our time to get out of our heads and into our hearts. Because we can sit here and try to fix each other's problems all day long, but that's not actually going to do anything, right? Another problem's just going to show up. And most of the time, those problems that we're trying to fix are usually have to do with our emotions. Yeah. So it has to do with feeling. If we can take a moment, and even if it's just for an hour and a half, a couple of times a month, to be able to intentionally step out of our thinking minds, our fixing brains, and just drop into our feeling hearts. And once that happens, and we start speaking from that place, it just creates a huge shift.
How long are you working with a group before y'all are able to really be able to do that and participate fully in something like that?
I mean, I jump in right away. And some people aren't ready for it.
Yeah.
But, I try to, I'm a big believer in sort of like repetition, right? So, everything that I do when I facilitate men's groups, it's, and even in coaching, it's like, we don't have to go there. It's not, I'm not going to put you on the spot where you have to answer this deep question, right? You you're here because you want to be here. So, you have the ability, especially in the men's groups, you have the ability to pass. If you don't feel comfortable talking about that, dude, it's way more important to have your presence here and to have all these other men here present with you just to be in the space than it is to feel uncomfortable to talk about something that you're not ready for, right? Also, I'm very big into sort of breath work and meditation and And I guide men into, in the opening of these men's groups, into a little sort of visualization where we sit back, close our eyes, take a couple of intentional breaths, and then we do this sort of body scan that like starts from your head and moves down your body, and just, just taking intention and focusing on coming out of your brain, past your chin, down into your heart. Like, I can see, all of the men that are in this group, like the tension just released, and they like sit in their chair a different way. And it's powerful. And it's super simple. It's not, we're not doing huge therapeutic work. We're literally just settling our nervous systems and like feeling into our hearts.
Yeah, I laugh because I literally did that this morning, and it was probably the best that I've felt in, in about a week. It's so relieving to be able to participate that. Now, to say that today is basically a miracle compared to 3 years ago. 3 years ago, if you were to ask me to meditate and do a scan down, I would call you a woo-woo idiot and just tell you to F off, essentially. But it's so effective.
Yeah, I was the same way. I was just there, and like even whenever I started to get into meditation, like that was just really hard. Like just being able to sit quietly for a moment and focus on nothing. Like, dude, my brain is all over the place. Again, it's like I'm like scanning, scanning for whatever danger is around me, and it's like, no, dude, all you have to do is just sit here. Just sit here, be in your thoughts, allow them to come and go.
Yeah, that is kind of what I've told myself that it is a judgment-free zone in there. So whenever I'm like down there talking, anything comes up, it doesn't matter. Like, you're a POS, like whatever you want to say it. And instead of meeting it with like judgment, like, oh no, I'm not, I'm better than that. I'm just curious, like, okay, I wonder, like, where is that coming from? And if you sit with it, it's, of course it's distressing, but like after you're finished with it, if you let it speak, it will, it'll leave. It doesn't have to hang around.
Yeah. It's almost like you can also thank your thoughts, right? You can thank that. Like, thank you for saying that. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Like, I hear you. I don't, I don't agree with you. And, and I think that's, like, but thank you for speaking that way inside my brain right now. I'm going to honor that for a second and then set you aside. And now we're going to step into the things that I need to get done that are right in front of me.
Like how you were talking about that, I'm assuming is the exact same way that you would talk to your kids. If y'all were hanging out and they said something kind of like out of pocket a little bit or something, right? Like it's so funny how it works internally and externally.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Our kids are our biggest mirrors, man. It's really wild. And I see it every single day, and I have 2 kids. I have a girl and a boy, and they each they highlight so many things and show me so many things where I'm like, I'm flabbergasted a lot of times.
I want you to brag on yourself a little bit. What is your proudest moment as a dad?
The proudest moment as a dad. Gosh, there are so many, man. I think, okay, here's a good one. This is just the first one that I came to mind. I don't know if it's necessarily the proudest.
Yeah.
But I was going on a hike with my kids. Like, I'm a big outdoors guy. Like, I spoke about going camping and stuff. And we were at one of our local hikes that we go on all the time. And both of my kids were just tired and complaining. And we were at a point in the hike where it's the most strenuous. And our goal was to get to this waterfall. And just out of sheer just like, annoyance, I told my son, I was like, hey, go scout ahead. I said, go up around the corner and see if we're there yet. I think we're pretty close. And it purely, like, the only reason why I said that was to get him to stop complaining, right? So my son goes up around, my daughter's still with me, and he goes up around the corner. And right as he goes around the corner, these two women were coming down the hike. And they both looked at him and then looked at me and then looked at him and looked at me. And my first initial thought, I was like, man, like they're going to have some sort of comments about my parenting, or, they're going to be some Karens that have some opinion, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so as we got closer, I was like, oh gosh, here it comes. And they actually did stop me. And this woman says, she goes, I just want you to know that you're doing an amazing job. And I was like complete opposite of what I thought
right.
was going to say, right? She goes, we're two child psychologists. And what you're doing right now by having your son go off alone like that is creating independence and creating a safety and courage to do things alone. And that is completely missing in our generation. And we try to teach that to parents, all the time in our practice, like giving our kids independence to go do hard things.
Mm-hmm.
So they were like, just want you to know that you're doing an amazing job. And like, I couldn't, for one, I thought I was going to get ripped a new one.
Right.
Like,
yeah, exactly.
I thought I was going to get scolded for my parenting. And it turns out I was doing something that was, really beneficial to my kids' growth. So that would be one of the proudest moments. But to be fully honest, like, I didn't want to be a dad. And it just kind of happened. And I was so scared to be a father because I didn't grow up with a great father.
Same.
And I was like, well, how am I going to be a good dad if I didn't have a good dad to show me how to be that way? And so, one of the greatest moments was literally seeing my son come, like the moment he was born, like actually my first kid coming and then him looking at him while he's, the first breaths that he had ever taken and holding him in my arms. I felt a shift in my body. It was like I felt myself step into fatherhood. Mm-hmm. And I have completely leaned in, ever since. And so that would really be, I think, one of the proudest moments is just really just becoming a father.
You seem so natural in the leadership and stuff. It surprises me, or surprised me whenever you said that you didn't have plans on being a father before. It seems like something that you would just be naturally
Well, thank you. I appreciate that because leading into it, man, I was scared.
Oh yeah. And I was terrified.
Be honest with you. I'm about to launch a fatherhood program.
Mm-hmm.
I have a workshop coming up next month.
Oh yeah, that's right. Get into dad mode.
Dad mode activated.
Dad mode activated. Yeah, that's right. Okay.
I built this and created this program entirely around what we were just talking about. Like that fear of becoming a dad, the fear of how am I going to be a good dad? I don't know how to be a good dad.
Right.
That 9-month process of finding out that that we're pregnant and then the moment my son came in was, there was so much fear, so much anxiety. I was freaking out. I woke up one morning and I gave myself TMJ. I had lockjaw because I was grinding my teeth at night. Yep. And I couldn't actually open my mouth. I was so nervous. And, I called my dentist and they got me into an emergency, appointment. And she shoved a needle into my jaw and loosened up my jaw. And we did all these exercises to loosen that up. And one of the first questions she asked me, she said, she goes, what's going on in your life? And I was like, well, I'm about to have a kid. She goes, that's exactly what it is. He's like, you need to chill out, man. Everything's going to be fine.
I think that is a really good example of someone giving advice where if you haven't been in a environment where you've had CPTSD, it'd be really easy to tell somebody, hey, just chill out. It's going to be okay. And they may be able to take it. But someone with your background telling you to chill out probably had the reverse effect, didn't it?
I mean, yes and no. Yes, I was it gave me an understanding of oh, wow, I didn't actually realize that I was this stressed out about this situation. Again, our backgrounds come from you operate with a certain level of anxiety and stress like all the time. So for me, it was like there was a part of me that was like, dude, don't even talk to me like that. Like, I can't believe that you would say that, right? Like, you don't have no clue what I'm going through. But then there was also a part of me that was like, wow, that's what's going on right now. And it gave me an answer that I needed to hear, right?
Yeah.
That like I needed to, I needed to just to be in my body a little bit and to understand that like this is a big shift. And that's what kind of goes back to Dad Mode Activated is like there are a lot of men out there that were freaking out just as much as I was.
Oh yeah.
So I built this program and this workshop to kind of talk about that, to be able to put words to like what you're probably feeling because now you just realized you're about to have a baby.
Yeah.
And there's some great techniques to be able to, one, understand that what's happening, like what's happening to you in this process, in that 9 process, what's happening to mom in that process. And also how to be a more supportive partner in this process. Because what ends up happening is we really just are kind of sitting back going, okay, well, like, what do I do right now? I'm not growing a baby inside me. I don't really know what to do, and it hasn't happened yet. And, for us, we're men, we're fixers, right? Like you have a problem in front of you, we fix it. Like it's very, very literal. Like we see the problem. This is broken. Okay, how do I fix this broken thing? But like when you're about to have a baby, like it's the only thing you're seeing is her belly growing. That's it. There's nothing to fix.
I'm so disappointed that you did not have this course 3 years ago. It just as you were saying that, I remember being like I was painting the nursery closet. I was listening to Creed, I think with Arms Wide Open. It's the song where I think he just found out his wife or girlfriend was pregnant, and I remember the lines of like basically like I hope the kid's not like me. I hope he understands that he can like take the world and live a good life. And I remember that so deeply resonating with me, like and like having tears in my eyes as it was like going. And I was like, I really need some help. If Creed is resonating this much with me, things are not going well.
And yeah, yes, same. And that's why I kind of created this, right? I was able to see these things, these experiences that I had, and kind of had this like wider view perspective of like I'm probably not the only guy that had that experience. We were also the first of our friend group to have kids. And so we were kind of the models for all of our other friends. So I got to see all of our other friends start having kids and the relationship dynamics that were coming up and how, things were shifting in other households aside from mine. And I'm a very bird's eye view kind of, like I see everything from the wider perspective and like, the bigger picture. So seeing some of the relationship dynamics that played out in my friends informed me for some of the stuff that I am now putting in this program. And to be honest with you, there were bigger issues happening between me and my ex-wife, but if I had this program, it may have saved my marriage. And that's really why I'm kind of doing this. Like, there's statistics out there that the moment that you have a baby, the divorce rate like skyrockets. And I don't want that to happen. Like, I want to see these families like grow together. That having a child is like a huge next chapter. Not only just for dad, but for mom, for the family. Like it is a big shift, but not so big of a shift that you have to really stress yourself out over. It's a natural shift, and if we can learn some tools and plan and learn to communicate a little bit better, it can actually be the best thing to ever happen to anybody's life.
Oh yeah, no, I think that your program is absolutely necessary. So your brain is literally like kind of rewiring itself a little bit whenever you're becoming a dad. You're losing gray matter. Things like your life is completely turned upside down. And that's even if you're prepared. So yeah, to have like a support system along the way and somebody that you can talk to and it not come off as complaining to someone who's going through early morning sickness or morning sickness or whatever, it would be, I think it would be a huge tool for folks.
Yeah, I think it is. Every, doctor that I've talked to, every nurse, every doula, every, midwife, they all, every mom that I've talked to is like, "Oh, yes, we definitely need this." So, it's an area that there isn't a lot of support for. It's sort of an underserved. I hate to use like business terms in this kind of stuff because we're talking about
Mhm.
but it's a demographic that's really that there isn't a whole lot of support for. And
Yeah.
I didn't come up with this because of that. I came up with this because I just felt like when I was at that moment of having lockjaw, like I needed something like this and there wasn't anything out there. So, if I can provide some support or some knowledge or some, mentorship to young men who were about to step into the biggest chapter of their life, fatherhood, like it's a win-win.
Yeah. So I imagine getting out on podcasts. What are some other ways we can get this message out for your program?
Well, I'm pretty active on social media.
Okay.
It's Aaron Gambel at Aaron M. Gambel. My website is aarongamble.com. It's Gambel, Gambel. Yeah. And I've got my men's group is pretty active. That's called the Wolf Den. I can
Okay.
send you a link for that stuff as well.
Yeah, please do. We can put it under the show notes, and I'd like to look at it for myself as well.
Oh, would love to have you, dude. It's a whole lot of fun. And I do and that in particular is it's about 50-50 online and in person. So
Okay.
I've got a pretty sweet setup in my house that I've been able to put it together for all the guys on Zoom, and it's really powerful. So I'd love to have you anytime, man.
I moved to a new town, Camden. I think was like 9 months old. Whenever we moved here, and haven't quite made my kind of community here, and so definitely in search of one.
Yeah, let's do it, dude.
Well, now that I have that verbal commitment, which is legally binding, by the way, Aaron, man, I tell you what, I have had an absolute blast talking with you, man. This has been so much fun.
Yeah, me too, dude. What a great conversation.
Do you think you wouldn't mind coming back, would you?
In a heartbeat, dude.
Awesome, man. Aaron, thank you so much for acting out with me.